Hello everyone, my name's John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to Baker Street Reviews! We are back! I know at the beginning of this I promised to do this way more regularly, but hey, I at least try to do this once or twice every year. So yes, welcome back to Baker Street Reviews, the series where I watch, read, and review all kinds of different Sherlock Holmes adaptations, because if you've been on my channel for a while, you know I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes nerd. I love the book. Sherlock Holmes is one of my favorite fictional characters of all times. I wrote my bachelor thesis on that guy. I have video essays about him and the stories on my channel. Go and watch them. Just overall big fan. I also now own the official Sherlock Holmes Lego, which you can see up here, which my best friend gifted to me for my birthday present, as a birthday present this year. And it's a really cool set. Like, I love it so much, and I'm forever grateful that my friend gave this to me. Like, it looks so cool. And today, we are here, even though I'm a bit late with this, we're here to review Guy Ritchie's new Sherlock Holmes. It's not the third Robert Downey Jr. film, unfortunately, I guess. No, it is Young Sherlock. And of course, every time there's a new Sherlock Holmes TV show, I inevitably end up watching it. And today, we are here to talk about it. I don't know how much I'm gonna get into spoilers, because I usually just do this without the script. But just in general, maybe spoiler warning, because I don't know what I might end up saying, just in case you haven't seen the show yet. So, Young Sherlock is Guy Ritchie's newest Sherlock Holmes project. It came out on Amazon Prime and stars Hero Finds Tiffin as a young Sherlock Holmes. Hero Finds Tiffin you will either know from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, where he plays young Voldemort, or you will know him from the After movies, where he played the male lead, who was an absolute wanker. I've seen all those movies, they're hilariously dumb and stupid. So, I don't have exactly the best idea of Hero Finds Tiffin, because the only things I know him from are him playing a psychopathic child and an abusive boyfriend who's not well written. So I was a bit nervous going into this. However, we also have some big stars attached to the show. We have Colin Firth, who plays a new character invented for the show. And we also have one of the other Fiennes brothers. It's not Ray Fiennes, but his brother, whose name is Joseph Fiennes. So, and as you can probably imagine, he is playing Hero Fiennes' dad, so his uncle plays his dad in the show, which I guess makes sense. The general premise of this show, before we get into my opinions, is the following. This is set, as you can probably tell from the title of the show, this is set early in Sherlock's life. This is set around the time when Sherlock is supposed to be 19 years old. We're just gonna ignore the fact that Hero Finds Tiffin is literally my age. He's like 29 years old. We're gonna ignore that. And Sherlock is a bit of a petty thief, but he's a smarty pants still. So Mycroft is like, I just need you to get your shit together. So I got you a job at this prestigious university, not to study there, but to work there. And of course, crimes happen. Sherlock actually makes a new friend by the name of James Moriarty. And the two of them sort of become a dynamic duo that goes on to solve this branching mystery that involves stuff that happened in China, lots of colonial crimes as well. Of course, there's some murders as well and some family mysteries, because Sherlock actually has a second sibling. There's 3 Holmes siblings in this, and yes, it is yet again a sister, because for whatever reason, Sherlock Holmes adaptations really like to do this recently. Okay, as always with my Baker Street Reviews, I'm more here to like analyze this show as a Sherlock Holmes adaptation. So I will judge how I think they adopt the characters well, or a version of the characters at least. Does it feel like a Sherlock Holmes story? Do the Sherlock Holmes characters from the canon feel like they are good adaptations of the characters from the original books? So I'm not gonna dive that much into like what I thought of the story and all that. Like the story, just like as a general my general opinion on the show, it's okay. Like it's not amazing, but it's also not terrible. Like this is by no means terrible, but it's also very Guy Ritchie. You can tell Guy Ritchie had a hand in making this show. Lots of like unnecessarily slow mo in the action scenes so it looks cool. Way too many action scenes in general, anyway. That's just very Guy Ritchie. It feels very modernized, very modern and contemporary, even though it's meant to be set during Victorian times. It has a bit of, it's not quite Marvel type of humor, but it does have it does have that sort of a winking sense of humor that I sometimes don't like that modern TV does. It's bearable in this, but sometimes there are moments where like why are we doing a joke at this point? There's some unnecessary drama, melodrama. There's some unnecessary romance slash sex stuff for whatever reason. And but that's not necessarily a Guy Ritchie problem or issue, what or however you want to see it. Just a lot of meddling with the Holmes canon in a way that someone like me, who tends to be more of a purist, and I know that's not necessarily a good thing, you're not you're not gonna enjoy it from like that aspect, because it just really leans into some adaptational changes that a lot of like recent adaptations just really like doing. And there will be some writing characterizations in here where you're like, okay, that makes sense for the show, I guess, but it doesn't really make sense for this being a supposed Sherlock Holmes adaptation. There's also stuff in the story where I'm like, this is like unnecessarily like convoluted, or people get killed off, or mysteries are introduced that don't make any sense. So here's a spoiler. Colin Firth's character gets like killed off halfway through the show. And then that's that. Like, he just unceremoniously gets killed off. He was just a massive twat throughout the whole show, who's like this upper class, highbrow, nonsensical headmaster of university or whatever, who wants to preserve, the prestigious state of the school. And you think like for a while I thought, oh, maybe he's gonna end up being the antagonist or the mastermind. No, it's just tried and then he gets killed off. And then we get introduced to Sherlock's dad, who's played by Joseph Fiennes Tiffin. So my theory was they ran out of budget. They only had enough budget for these two high-class actors, so they could only keep Colin Firth for the first half of the show. And then they had to kill him off, and then they had to introduce another A-class actor for the second half of the show. That's literally how it felt at times. So yeah, it's like you can have good fun with it if you go into it not necessarily expecting anything like new. Um, and if you don't go into it like me with a sharp eye on how good of a Sherlock Holmes adaptation in this is this, like you can have good fun with it, but don't expect too much, I guess. Okay, let's talk adaptation. Let's talk characters, characterization, and all that other nonsense Guy Ritchie tried to include in this. Okay, so let's talk about Sherlock, our titular character, young Sherlock. Again, he's supposed to be 19 years old. Hero finds Tiffin is 29 or 28. Actually, you know what? Hero finds Tiffin right now would be the perfect age to start playing, like to play Sherlock Holmes at the age that Sherlock Holmes is in the original story. Like, because the first story, like a study in Scarlet, is set around 81 or something, and Sherlock Holmes is around 27 years old at that time. That would have been a good age. That Hero finds Tiffin could have just done that, I guess. But no, you very much have to go with, oh yeah, this is a bunch of people in their 20s or even like 30-year-old who will play late teenagers or like people who are around 20 years old, and you're like, yeah, I guess we're doing that because TV shows always like doing that. So what I was positively surprised by is that Hero finds Tiffin is actually a fine actor. Like I know the only things I've seen him are his minor role in Harry Potter, and then in a movie series where he had to play the worst kind of romantic abusive lead in the after movies, which are terrible. They're horribly written, and that character he plays there is ass. But in this, like, he's he's fun. Like he is charismatic. He feels charismatic. He feels a little off. He like has a chip on his shoulder and all that, and like he's winking all the time. Like he feels like he feels like a leading man. Like yeah, he has a good presence, I think, on screen, and I wasn't bothered by like his acting choices or anything. The thing is, who he's playing is, I mean, the show tells you it's Sherlock Holmes, but you're like, "Mm, not really. Like the version of Sherlock Holmes he plays, like I understand, is supposed to be a young Sherlock Holmes. This isn't a fully formed Holmes yet, so I understand that not all of the characterization aspects that we know from the canon, they're not all supposed to be there yet. I get that. However, what it felt like to me was that Sherlock in this show basically just feels like a mildly eccentric, smarty pants character. Like, that's it. It doesn't feel like a young version of Sherlock Holmes. Like, Sherlock in this show, he's like a petty thief. Like, he gets into trouble because he likes stealing stuff, and he's good at, like, tricking people. He's a bit of a con man. And like he's good at, like, I do like that we see that he's good at acting and pretending to be other people, which is something that I like. That is something that we see the adult Holmes do as well. So this is something that's good. But that's sort of it. Like, but you're like, yeah, he is smart, and he does have like deduction scenes, sort of, but they don't really feel like deduction scenes in the classic Sherlock Holmes sense. We even get like, just like in BBC Sherlock, we get like a whole sort of mind palace thing where he like goes into his mind and we see like a visualization of what he goes through in a recreation of the scene so he can deduce things. And then Moriarty is with him as well, and they discuss this together. Like, sure, it does feel a little eccentric and a little bit different, but it doesn't feel Sherlock Holmes, if you know what I'm saying. It doesn't feel like that. And while I understand that this can't be like a fully fledged Sherlock Holmes yet, I wish they would have hinted at more aspects of a future adult Sherlock Holmes. Like with that Sherlock is good at pretending to be other people. He's a good actor. That's a good aspect. But that's also about the only thing that I really saw in this version of Holmes where I was like, oh yeah, that's like such a Holmes thing to do. But like, for example, like you could have introduced that he starts smoking pipes at this age. That is an age where he would have started smoking. He doesn't smoke in this, like he doesn't smoke pipes or anything like that. You could have hinted at that he might have developed a drug problem at some point. You don't have to have him do it, but like hint at it a little bit. I don't know, something like that. They could have hinted at that he plays the violin. There's none of that. Like he doesn't play the violin. He's not really interested in classical music and such stuff or composing. There's none of that. He's not interested in the theater. He's not even interested in chemistry. Like we have a university setting and all that, and they don't even have him be interested in chemistry or anything along those lines. Like Sherlock Holmes is literally introduced to Watson at uh I don't even know if it's like at a hospital, at like an academic setting where he does chemistry research. That's how Holmes is literally introduced in the books. He is a learned chemist, and he probably might have even studied it at university. None of that here. None of that here. Like, instead of actually attending university, he just happens to work there and doesn't really engage with the academic setting. Like, why? Sherlock Holmes studied. He was at university. There is a story in the canon, the Musgrave Ritual, which is a flashback story about Holmes solving a case for his for a former student friend of his when he was quite young. Why couldn't we have had some of that stuff in this show? That this just isn't here. We some people I saw some people were like, oh, at least this Sherlock in the show is Ace or Arrow Ace, and I was like, is he though? Like, not really. Like, I'm glad that at least in this version, Guy Ritchie doesn't give Sherlock Holmes a romantic interest. However, they do sort of try a little bit. Like, there is another character in this show who is like one of the important like secondary characters from China, and she's like a very skilled fighter who starts out as an enemy but then becomes an ally. And there is a scene in the second half of the show where Sherlock talks to that woman. They have an interaction and she's sort of interested in him, and for some reason she just like kisses him. There was no tension between these two in any way at all, or she didn't express any interest in him at all. And I guess he just like he doesn't act interested. He just sort of stands there and accepts it. Like he doesn't. It's almost like he doesn't react to it. It's more like he's sort of like it almost feels like he's like the audience acting like, oh, I guess this happened, and then she like backs off and calls him weird or something, and that's it. I wouldn't really call this a canon Arrow Ace depiction of the character, because romance is not coming up. This is not really. He doesn't act like when this kiss happens. He doesn't act like this is something he's not interested in or he doesn't want. It's more like he's just a bit startled by that this has just happened, because that's literally how it is presented in the scene. But that's sort of it. Like, maybe they should have done a sort of romantic subplot where we do see that he isn't interested. That would have been cool. Go full on in with this, that that woman is interested in him, and he specifically points out that he is not interested in any kind of romance. That would have been cool. That would have been an interesting aspect. Or he doesn't. Or maybe he doesn't even have to fully acknowledge it that he isn't interested, but that maybe it's hinted at that he's figuring this out, that he is not interested in those kinds of relationships. That would have been an interesting aspect, I think. So he isn't a bad character, but he's not a good Holmes. That's what I was thinking. Like, Hero Finds Tiffin plays this character fine. Like, he's charismatic, he can carry a scene, he's a good main character and a main actor in an okay show. But it doesn't feel like I'm watching a young version of Sherlock Holmes. Even though if you've read the books, if you've seen some other adaptations, it doesn't feel like a young version of that character. Now, going from one Holmes sibling to the next, Mycroft is in this. He's the one who gets Sherlock the job at the university, and it's sort of like his guardian and watches over him a bit, and it's like, oh, Sherlock is always getting himself into trouble, and I don't really like it, but I have to look out for him because he's my little brother. Like, it's that, which, I mean, is very Mycroft of him, but again, this is not what I imagine a young Mycroft is like. First off, this is not a problem with the actor, because it's not his fault that he got cast in this, but look at him. Why is he a skinny, tall guy? Mycroft is a big guy. Like, Mycroft is fat. Why can't they ever, in any adaptation, portray him as such? Guy Ritchie has actually done this so much better before, when he cast Stephen Fry in his second Holmes movie. Fry, visually, perfect casting. He's tall, he's fat, he's smart sounding, Perfect casting for Mycroft Holmes. And in this, he's just another tall, skinny guy with a mustache. Why are you so afraid of casting a big actor for a big character? Just let Mycroft be fat. Like, seriously, what's your issue with it? And he does already have sort of a job at the government, but not like the high position that he has later, which is fine. That's good, and I like that he's concerned about Sherlock and tries to look out for him. There's some good sibling chemistry there, but again, it doesn't feel like this is Mycroft, because if you remember from the original stories, Mycroft is smarter than Sherlock. Like, Mycroft is just as smart and even called smarter than Sherlock. He is good at this shit. He could be an even better detective than Sherlock. Like, Mycroft is mastermind's level of genius intelligence, but this show is like acting like he's just another character who is trying to look out for Sherlock. Like, it doesn't feel like they're on the same level of intelligence at all. Like, yeah, sure, like he has some moments where he like does little bit of like solving mysteries by himself, but or like tricks some people into doing stuff, but it never feels like the show is trying to be like he's on like it never feels like the show is trying to tell you, oh yeah, he's on the same level or even better than Sherlock. Never. The show never even attempts to go there. I will say there's one episode in this show in the second half where for like half the episode, Mycroft and a young version of Lestrade go off and by themselves and try to like solve a mystery. And that was legit my favorite part of the show because it felt so much like a Holmes Watson dynamic. It was so much fun to see these two, like Mycroft and Lestrade, go and solve a mystery together. I was like, back in BBC Sherlock days, I was always like, I don't get the mistrayed couple. I don't get it. You know, you watch this and that episode, and I'm like, you know, I kind of get it. The chemistry between them is really fun. Oh, and yeah, a young Lestrade is in this, but he's a nothing character. Like, he's a policeman called Lestrade who occasionally turns up and helps them solve stuff, but that's it. Like, if you didn't know the stories, you wouldn't bet an eye at this character because the show doesn't treat him with any treats him as a relatively insignificant secondary, well, tertiary character even. And then we have a third Holmes sibling, and yet again, it's a missing sister who is a bit weird, who is maybe even a bit evil, who is also super intelligent, and who Sherlock has some trauma about. Are we are these recent adaptations? And I'm saying recent, if we think back when Sherlock BBC Sherlock series 4 happened. Why are we doing this? Like, why do we keep doing this? Like, I understand it's popular to be like, oh hey, there's another Holmes sibling. I'm not. Yeah, that's just me being a Holmes purist. I'm not the biggest fan of this because why? I mean, I totally understand the need wanting to introduce more female characters because, oh boy, original stories are a sausage fest. We basically don't have any important female characters apart from Irene Adler, who appears in one story. Mary Morstan is sort of somewhere living with Watson, and Mrs. Hudson gets mentioned offhandedly sometimes. That's it. That's it. There's really no significant female characters in that canon, so I understand the need to introduce more female characters. I'm just getting a bit tired of it always being like, oh, it's another Holmes sibling, it's a sister, and she's of course just as intelligent as Sherlock, or no, she's even smarter than Sherlock and Mycroft, and she's probably also a little bit weird and evil. We're doing it in this show again. So the sibling is called Beatrice. Sherlock has trauma about her because he thinks she died when they were quite young, and he thinks it was his fault, and then spoiler, I guess, of course, it is revealed as the show goes on that Beatrice didn't actually die and that their dad had a whole secret thing going on, and he raised Beatrice to be, I guess, a sort of evil criminal mastermind to take over his operations at some point, and then Beatrice is like a weird, evil psycho bitch who seduces Moriarty at one point. We'll come back to that. But then, of course, it's like, no, Beatrice, don't listen to her evil father. You can actually be good. And she's like, oh, no, I'm so confused about why I'm evil, but I'm actually not evil. I'm just traumatized. And we're just doing the same stuff, aren't we? We're just sort of doing the same thing again. I'm just not a big fan of it, as you can tell. Like, sure, introduce another Holmes sibling, let her be a girl. Like, that's fine. But why do I always feel like it's the same type of character? Like the last couple of times we've done this, why does it always feel like it's a very similar character? Like, I'm not saying she's the same as, like, for example, Enola Holmes. But again, like, it's, even with, I like the Enola Holmes movies are fine. I haven't seen them in a while, but they're fine. But like, even with Enola, it's like, oh, it's like this younger sibling who is, of course, just as intelligent as Sherlock, or sometimes even smarter than Sherlock. And I like Enola. To be fair, I like Enola more than whatever Beatrice has got going on in this. I just wish we did something more interesting with a third Holmes sibling. It doesn't have to. Not every Holmes sibling has to be super intelligent. Like, we got Mycroft and Sherlock here being super intelligent. A third sibling, the sister, can be. Why isn't she just a regular girl? Like, can't you just be. She doesn't have to be a detective variant. She doesn't have to be a mastermind variant. She doesn't have to be a variant. She doesn't have to be a female version of Sherlock. Like, if you do introduce a third Holmes sibling, if you do introduce a sister, make her her own character. Don't make her Sherlock Holmes but a girl. Like, just don't make her Sherlock Holmes but, I don't know, evil or psychopathic. It's been done. Do something else. It just didn't feel original. And I didn't care much for it. There's a scene, I already hinted at it, and I'm going to talk about Moriarty next anyway. There is a scene in this where Beatrice and Moriarty have a scene together, like right after they've discovered, oh hey, Beatrice is still alive, and she's sort of like an evil psychopathic mastermind, and she's a bit weird and all that. Like, she goes into Moriarty's room, and they have a scene together. They haven't really spoken before. It's their first solo scene together, just the two of them. And they talk, and she very obviously like tries to come onto him, and it's a very sexually charged scene for no reason. And it's so cringy by how like dark and sexy it's trying to be, and then Beatrice and Moriarty end up shagging. And that's it. It's not like it's important that they hooked up. It's not like this comes up again. It's not like this furthers anyone's character development, or we're introducing an interesting character chemistry here or dynamic or whatever. No! It's just the two evil people being evil horny for each other, and then they shag. And it just felt so weird and out of place, seriously. Speaking of Moriarty, let's talk about Moriarty, who in this version, of course, is also younger, and Sherlock meets him at university. So Moriarty is a student at the university, of course, mathematics, which is nice, and they befriend each other, and they solve the mysteries together. Now, the actor who plays Moriarty, what's his name, like Donald Finn, amazing. Like, he is the highlight of the show. Like, at first I was a bit like put off because he does play Moriarty in a very like slightly over the top eccentric way, very charismatic, very in your face, but it sort of works. And he's just a joy to watch. Like, he commands the screen whenever he's in a scene. You're like, okay, I'm with Moriarty. No one, get all the others out of here. I'm here for Moriarty. Like, that actor is having a lot of fun with this character. I like that they cast an Irish actor for this, that Moriarty gets to be Irish. always a big fan of that because Moriarty is an Irish last name, so of course he should be Irish. Big fan of that. Of course, he even gets some jokes where he like makes fun of the English, which is very in your face, but also sort of fun to watch. And he befriends Sherlock, and he is very similar to him, as in that he's a bit sarcastic, he's a bit like, and makes some jokes and makes some lines, and is very smart, of course, and is also able to deduce a bunch of things. And they do sort of try to hint at that he has a bit of a mean streak, that he can be a bit evil, but they don't do it often enough, and they only really start doing it in like the last 2 or 3 episodes of the show. Before that, there's nothing really in there where you're like, oh, Moriarty is like super like morally gray or something, or he has the potential to become a mastermind at some point or something. Like, I wish they had hinted at it, but I know that there's not as much to Moriarty as a character in the original books than there is to Sherlock, so there's a bit more like space to work with. But again, like with Sherlock, I wish they would have hinted at a bit more stuff where you're like, oh, I actually know this from the book, so that fits quite well. Like in the later half of the show, they try to hint at that he's evil, that he's morally grey. Like there's a scene where Moriarty killed someone for the first time, and I do like that they show that this has an impact on him. That this isn't something that he just did, but that actually did something to him, which I quite like. And but then of course they twist it in a very cliched evil way, where later he threatens someone, where he's like, oh, where he's like trying to be like, oh, you remember when I killed my first man, I think I might have rather enjoyed it, and then like in that sort of cliched sort of way, which where I was a bit like, I guess I know what you're trying to do here, but come on. Again, the weird evil sexy scene, which is I guess sort of was supposed to give you the vibe, oh my god, look at how weird and fucked up these two people are together. Ooh. No, it felt odd. And then towards the end, Moriarty like steals something. There's something about like a chemical formula for like a weapon and stuff. And Moriarty eventually like steals it and keeps that a secret that he steals it because he wants to like potentially like sell it to other people or use it for himself in the future or something. Like that is a good hint at him being morally grey, that he tries to steal something, that he tries to use something for his own benefit, that he's being egotistical in some way. But it literally happens at the very end. Sherlock does confront him about it, which is good, but it's not like they hint at any of that similar kind of stuff earlier, which I would have liked if they had maybe used Moriarty to be a bit more of a morally grey character who challenges Sherlock's own ideals of what he thinks is good or bad. I think that would have been quite interesting for Moriarty. I do like the Moriarty sort of does push him in certain ways, and Moriarty does introduce aspects to Sherlock that we know from an adult show later. Like Moriarty is the one who sort of pushes Sherlock into, dress up as other people, pretend to be other people, like sweet talk them and all that. Like Sherlock in the show gets that from Moriarty, which not quite sure how much I like that, but I guess it's a unique connection at least. And I do in general like this idea of Sherlock and Moriarty teaming up. I think that is an interesting chemistry. Like I think way more stories should do that, should play with like this Sherlock Moriarty dynamic, that they are actually quite similar, that they're like two sides of the same coin. One of them went good, one of them went bad. Sort of, I like this idea of that they're very similar, but took different paths later in life. I do like that idea, and we can see that a bit here. And the two actors have really good chemistry. Like it's fun to watch them solve stuff and fight against the bad guys and all that. They have really good chemistry. And it does feel different compared to a Holmes Watson dynamic that you would usually get in a show like this. Of course, it tries to play on that a little bit because this is a Sherlock Holmes story and Sherlock Holmes has to have a partner. But it doesn't feel like they're trying to do Holmes and Watson. It does feel like that at sometimes, but it doesn't lean into it too much. I think it was quite fun seeing the two actors on screen together and like be engaged in the mystery together. That was quite fun. And like I said, the guy who plays Moriarty is having a lot of fun with the character, and it was a lot of fun to like just watch him on screen and be that character. Yeah, that's basically all I can really say about the show. I know there's going to be a second season, which I guess I will watch. Like, I had enough fun with this show that I would watch a second season. I hope they can improve on like some of the characterizations of these characters, especially the ones who come from the canon. I know that this show is supposed to be like an like not a direct adaptation, but like inspired by the Young Sherlock Holmes books by Andy Lane, which funnily enough, I think I read some of those books like back when I was a teenager. Like 15 years ago or something, when I was like 14, 15 years old. I think I read like two of those books. Those books way different. I don't even know why they're saying that this show is inspired by those books. They have nothing in common. Like in the books, Sherlock is like a 13, 14-year-old teenager who has to spend the summer or something. It's been a while since I read those books. Who has to spend his time away from his parents somewhere else at a different house, and he is introduced to like crime solving for the first time. He's introduced to violin music for the first time, stuff like that. I do remember there actually being aspects in the book that I quite like that hinted at something. Oh, hey, this is something Sherlock will do later in life. I did actually quite like those at the time. Story is also way different in those books. So I don't really get why they're trying to be like, oh yeah, this is like loosely based on those books. No, it's not. It's completely different. Like, what are we even doing? So yeah, in conclusion, this is not a bad show. Like it's you can have fun with it. Just maybe don't go into it with this mind of, oh, this is going to be like a really cool, excellent Sherlock Holmes adaptation. Not really. See it more as like a loosely based on the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes or something like that. Like it's okay. Like I see a good basis there for like further development for the characters, because right now I can see what they're trying to do, but it's not enough. Like I feel like they're trying to sort of be like, oh yeah, this is like a version of this character but young, but they're not willing to fully go there. They're not hinting at enough stuff from the canon where I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually something that reminds me of something from the books. They're not doing that enough. But right now, this just feels like it feels a bit too much like this is any other detective action hero who's a bit eccentric. That's sort of what it feels like. Okay, so that's it for me. Please do let me know down in the comments below if you've watched the show, what you thought of it as a Sherlock Holmes adaptation or as a show in and of itself. Do let me down in the comments. Do let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are, and of course, if you have any other recommendations for future Baker Street reviews, put them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done already, and I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.